This event will change the Marvel or DC universe forever. That's what we hear. And a couple times this has been true. Let's talk about that. Hey there, this is Perch. Unfortunately, events always, totally overhype the completely earth-shaking. The universe will never be the same after this event. And they've gone to that well so much, especially of late, where there's at least one event a year, usually two. Now we've certainly in Marvel Land we've settled into two events. DC is headed in the same direction. DC kind of in the weirdest follow suit way is going to have like multiple events just on top of each other. Well, like I get this will probably play out just fine, and in a lot of ways it makes logical sense. But the idea of the year of the villain, which is more of a theme than an event, and I think that's an important thing to recognize. I think some of the Diamond and how they've hyped up. If you go back to the root, go back to the source, you look that DC is hyping up Year of the Villain as a theme, and that a lot of the comics will be taking advantage of this theme. And central among them is kind of the Justice League storyline, the Doom storyline, that's putting an emphasis on kind of powering up villainy and kind of giving the heroes more of a threat. And that's what we're going to see. And so that's kind of how the Year of the Villain will play out. But it's not like an event. It's not like we're getting a mini series and a bunch of other things. We're getting within the pages of Justice League. If you're interested in follow that storyline, you can follow it there. Over in Batman, we get the City of Bane stuff, or event Leviathan over in the Bendis world. So there's lots of different events all going on, but it all kind of fits into this theme. But beyond that, in Marvel world, we just had War of the Realms kind of conclude, and that was promises to shake the Marvel universe to its very foundation. And what did we get out of that event? Well, we got Thor got his hammer back. Valkyrie died. That's about it. Laufey, or sorry, not Laufey. Malekith was kind of torn into pieces by dogs, and Laufey was probably killed from Loki bursting out of his stomach with a sword. I don't know, but anyway, a lot of it's always amusing to me. There's been this habit lately of having the shocking event early in the event and then undo it at the end. So in Fear itself, historically this was Bucky as Captain America is killed by Sin, and then at the end of the event revealed no, they faked his death, he's still alive. In War of the Realms, we got in issue number one Loki being eaten basically and killed, and in issue number six, Loki having survived in Laufey's stomach and everything's just fine. So I don't know. I mean, whatever. But the purpose of this is there have been a couple times where the world will never be the same was a actual true statement. And so looking at events that actually had an impact and really changed the status quo and changed it for a while. On the Marvel side, I think you can absolutely say that about Civil War, and you can say that about Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion led to Dark Reign, which then led to Age of Heroes. I think that Siege, I don't count Siege as an event. I mean, there's certainly it was, but it was a shortened event. It was 4 issues, and it was kind of the cap to Dark Reign. Siege didn't feel like an event like Fear itself and some of these others have. But I think Secret Invasion, arguably, Secret Invasion had more of a line-wide set of consequences than Civil War did, even though Civil War did kind of break things up. That was confined somewhat to the Marvel books, definitely had some impact. But Secret Invasion I think, a bigger impact in terms of bringing some people back from the dead, shaking up the status quo, putting Norman Osborn in charge. It set off a bunch of things. Going further back in Marvel Land, I think Secret War absolutely had a big impact. The funny part is Secret Wars, the more recent one, had less of an impact. It certainly stopped everything, and it shut down the Ultimate Universe. And there's a bunch of things that it did do, But the Ultimate Universe was on life support previous to Secret Wars, and then a lot of the titles just kind of put all the toys back in the box, and the world went on. Took the Fantastic Four off the map, but now they're back. It's funny. I think I've mentioned this before, but the Fantastic Four, you read their book, and the recent issue with dedicated kind of Val and Franklin learning how to drive, and it's like, yeah, it does not feel like they were gone for several years and we missed them. It's weird how, not stale, but just kind of that title has become. It's very, very strange. Anyway, over on DC, DC's a little trickier. So DC, I think, obviously Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think that definitely had a big impact, and I think you could make a very strong argument. Flashpoint had a huge impact based on the New 52, and then kind of 5 or so years later, Rebirth. But Rebirth did not restore DC back to pre-Flashpoint. It kind of created a kind of a merged third world, and so I think Flashpoint, you can argue pretty, I think, legitimately that Flashpoint had a pretty major impact on DC. And then it gets a little trickier. And keep in mind, I'm not saying beloved events. I'm not saying like events that were really good. I think over in DC, Blackest Night, obviously, I think had it was a great event, but it probably wasn't the biggest. It didn't have a line wide impact to DC. It didn't have a massive, some characters came back and some things happened, but it was a more minor solution. I think you could argue that like Blackest Night is kind of like, DC's version of Fear itself, only, a better, certainly a better written event. But in terms of the lasting impact that it had, didn't change the world over any. Final Crisis, no. Again, a lot of the crises, other than the first one, didn't do a huge amount to really change the line of the comics. I think if you're using the hysterical hyperbole of nothing will ever be the same again, nothing will ever be the same, then I think we're talking, to some extent, Secret War, the original Secret War. You're talking, probably Civil War, Secret Invasion kind of fit into that world. Since that point, probably nothing. I mean, the only, yeah, probably not. Those would probably be it on the Marvel side. Over on DC, like I said, Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think Flashpoint would have a pretty good argument for that case, and that's, I'm sure I'm forgetting something. There have been other crises, but I think that's probably the big one there. I don't know. That's my take on it. I don't think, by the way, and I think promising. I think that both publishers should just stop promoting any. This will change the universe forever. I think make a title feel must read by just putting it out there and having it be so good that fans absolutely love it and it's must read. I think nobody at this point is fooled by, this is the event you cannot miss because the Marvel universe, the DC universe will never be the same after this. No, nobody is buying into that. There's no buyers like, oh crap, I have to buy it. No, that line means nothing to anyone at this point. So make it mean something again. Better yet, just don't say that and have your fans say it for you. I think that would be a way better way to go about it. In terms of who's in need of a big line-wide reboot, and a reboot is that's a whole video on itself. That's a very loaded term, but which universe needs the world will never be the same? Well, I mean, absolutely, Marvel needs that at this point. They need to inject the sense of urgency and danger, and big things are happening here. That Marvel needs an event where you feel like big things are happening here badly. DC actually does not need that. DC doesn't need the world will never be the same kind of event. They just need you know, they just need some not consistency is wrong. They need to live up to their promise. They need to basically, provide 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 some consistency of some books where people are buying in and they're getting what they want. And in this regard, I think it's like the Tom King Batman run. I actually think, in a weird way, it sends kind of a bad message to push Tom King into this mini series. I mean, I've given my own opinion of it, but I mean, it's a for all the other noise, it's a fun way to have King do his major change to Batman and get a third monthly Batman book out of the deal. Although technically they're not adding stuff because Batman was twice monthly, and now Batman will go back to being monthly, and then the Tom King Batman Catwoman title will be the third title. So technically they've kind of just kept things the way they are. But be that as it may, um, DC just needs some long runs that you can buy into and just keep reading. Like the Tom King Batman, like the Snyder Batman before that, like the Snyder Justice League now, like the I say that, whereas I would love to see Bendis off Superman. I would just love to see him moving on to something else. But DC just needs to show that they're going to kind of want to build up this universe and not screw around with anything. Whereas I think Marvel needs to show that, okay, we're gonna stop playing around and make things matter a little bit. I think I was trying to explain this to somebody at Marvel, and I kept using the wrong words. And it's like everything else, you leave the conversation and you're like, oh crap, this is what I should have said. And it's not that it's not making things matter. It's that a lot of Marvel's current books, you could read them in like any order, meaning you could go ahead and you could take a lot of the books are not written to be timeless. You see, I'm still don't have the words right. It's just that there's no order to any of this stuff. It's just you can read them however you want, and it doesn't really matter. And that's good on one hand. I mean, if your audience is casual, that's good, but it's not good in the sense of making it feel like every month is a must buy. Like you got to get to the comic shop. And you got to pick up that story because you don't know what's going to happen next. It really matters, and if you miss this run, man, you got to go back and look at it. And in the funniest way, I've heard people defend kind of the current run and current books as being Netflix like. And that's an incorrect read because Netflix puts their stuff up for streaming, and that's fine. But then people go back and they binge. And what they don't do is people don't go and they binge season 4, and then they go back and binge season 1, and then they watch a couple episodes of season 3, and then go over to season 6. I mean, they don't just randomly start just watching episodes. It's not like a syndicated comedy. It's not like Friends, or something like that. So I think that it still matters to have these books in some kind of order. And going back to the original theme, it's still, you need to have kind of, if you're going to have an event that's going to shake things to its very core, you need to actually shake things to its very core and have what comes out the other end be solid. But now I've wandered off the original topic pretty good by now. What I forget, what are the events? Again, I'm not saying events that were good or you like them or were bad. I'm talking about what are the events that actually changed most of the publishing line status quo in a significant way that actually did truly, quote unquote, shake the Marvel universe, shake the DC universe to its foundation. What have I forgotten? Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, tell a friend, and follow me on social media on Twitter. I'm Comic Perch. Thanks for listening.